Welcome in my channel, welcome in my studio, and today we are with a very great guest. We are with Unmesh Dinda, the CEO and founder of PiXimperfect, the most important YouTube channel of Photoshop training. I think is the last Jedi of Photoshop. Wow.
Well, thank
Welcome
you
in
so
my
much
studio, my
for having me.
friend.
I'm not sure if I'm the most important one, but thank you so much for having me in the show. It's such an honor.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So what we are doing today? Today is simply talking, free talk with Mesh. We can ask him something interesting, some nice question, and just for simply have a fun time. So,
Absolutely.
first of all, what's your favorite idea when you start go for a video tutorial? What's your first approach of Photoshop?
It depends on the photo and what I want to achieve. Whenever you have a photo, you have an idea of what your vision is with that photo. Once you have that, you move towards that. Also, another way of looking at photos for me is that if you're editing a photo to fix something, you always look at the big problems first. You solve the big problems first and then move towards the finer details. Usually, we always get confused about which steps to take, what to do after what. It's just simple. Just look at the approach and you'll be fine. What do you
Ok,
think?
and praticamente, I translate for my Italian community. Praticamente ha detto che il suo approccio fondamentalmente è quello di iniziare a trovare i difetti più grandi e poi iniziare a fissarli nella maniera più consona e ovviamente imparare da anche i propri errori. So, Mesh, a lot of people send me a lot of questions for you, but I try to figure out the most common and I try to create a list. And now we start to do some question from our community. The first one
Absolutely.
is this, and it's a nice question to answer, in my opinion. What is your favorite approach for color grading? Do you use LUTs, prefer manually change, or others?
It has been changing rapidly. So far, I have been using curves a lot. When it comes to color grading, I would mask different areas, keep adding curves, adjustment layers, one on top of the other, and just play with the concept of curves, where we already know that red is the opposite of green, is the opposite of magenta, blue is the opposite of yellow. And we work through these numbers, we work through these values, and it just is so much easier to work with when it comes to color grading. With the curves adjustment, I usually use the hand inside of the curves. And let's say I want a little more blue tones in the shadows. So I would go there and increase the blues there. I want a little more yellowishness or warmth in the highlights. I would go there and increase the warmth or decrease certain colors in that area. It's very easy to do with curves. So that was my first method, my preferred method. But recently, things have been changing a little bit. I'm not saying I'm ditching curves. It still remains to be one of the most important things when it comes to color grading or even compositing. I have been experimenting a lot recently with Camera Raw, and I have to say, especially with the built-in presets and then with the color controls inside of that, like point color, it is just crazy amazing. You can easily target any color, move those sliders, and just slide it up. It just has made very easy for us to color grade, even the color mixer and even the color grading option inside of the camera color grading module. I'm sorry. So two things have been the most important for me recently. Curves is something I have always been using, and then Camera Raw is just, if you don't know anything about color grading, you can always start with Camera Raw. You can always start with the presets inside of Camera Raw because in the later versions, there are just so many that you can play with. You can hover over them, see what they are like, and then you can even control the amount of those presets using that slider. It's just revolutionary. If you want to take it a step further, I usually use the color grading panel inside of the edit section. And on top of that, point color or color mixer, life changing, game changing. They allow you to just click on any area of the image, increase or decrease the saturation of the color, luminosity of the color, and so many other aspects. So those are the things I would recommend and how I do it these days.
Oh, that's a very interesting answer. I'm translating from my Italian. Praticamente, ragazzi, Unmesh, lui inizia con le curve, perché le curve sono abbastanza semplici in termini di intuitività, quindi se metto il blu, tolgo il giallo, posso utilizzare mezzi toni, ombre e luci a mio piacimento, ma recentemente sta passando molto più tempo a utilizzare le nuove feature di Camera Raw e questo mi trova abbastanza d'accordo perché il nuovo Camera Raw è davvero uno strumento estremamente potente. Ci sono tantissimi preset che possono essere una buona base per iniziare e ci sono svariate tab per poter portare il proprio grading nella condizione ideale. Questo ovviamente parlando proprio di Photoshop puro, quindi Photoshop Vanilla. E quindi dovete assolutamente provarlo. Ok, next question. That's another interesting question, a little bit more technical, a little bit more nerdy.
Mhm.
Photoshop nerdy maybe. How to handle large file in Photoshop without slowing down your workflow.
How do you open a large file?
For example, a lot of layers get slow your PC
Mm.
or something else. There are some
There are
tricks
different ways,
to restore the.
especially when you're working with large files. Photoshop does start to lag. Couple things you can do. If you have unlimited money, upgrade your computer. That is the first I would recommend doing. But I understand there are compromises we all have to make because no matter how powerful your computer is, if you're working with a photo that is 100 megapixels, and even if you have like 10 layers, it will start to jam up. So, in those situations, let's say you have a lot of layers, you have like 50 layers. If you select all the layers and then you right click on it and convert all of it into a smart object, it will take a little bit of while, but after that is converted into a smart object, Photoshop will start to treat it as one layer. So it becomes much faster
Oh,
after
that's interesting.
a lot of layers that you're working with, right? Now, the great part about this is that you're not rasterizing it, it's a smart object. So you can always go into that and get access to all of those layers inside of it. You can also right click and return to layers. So you can convert that smart object back to all the layers. So it's all up to you. So that is one way of doing that. I actually have an entire video on what to do when Photoshop gets slower. These are the two tips that I already shared with you. There are many other tips in that video. So yeah, those are the
Oh,
first
wow.
things I would do.
That's
Also, increase the amount of RAM that you're giving Photoshop, allocating to Photoshop. If you go to Photoshop preferences, inside of that, if you go to performance, you can assign how much RAM are you allocating to Photoshop. If it's 60%, increase it to 70. If it's 70, increase it to 80. See how much that is. You can also do stuff like decreasing the history states you are remembering. By default, it should be 50. If you have increased it to 1,000, try to decrease that. There are many little things you can do. I recommend
Mhm.
watching that video if you're into that.
Ok, let's translate. Praticamente, questo è un trick interessante che in realtà mi ero totalmente dimenticato. Praticamente, se tu per esempio hai 50 livelli e Photoshop inizia a laggare, puoi trasformarli tutti insieme come fosse un unico livello, un oggetto avanzato. Tasto destro sui livelli e fai oggetto avanzato. Richiederà un po' più di tempo come operazione, ma poi Photoshop vedrà tutto questo come un livello unico, quindi in realtà se ci sono problemi di RAM e Photoshop succhia RAM, ragazzi, che una metà basta, è un processo molto conveniente. Comunque sia, per come è strutturato oggi Photoshop, avere delle performance importanti, specialmente per quello che riguarda la RAM di Photoshop, è importante. Quindi comunque trovate questi video su tutti i tip trick nel suo canale. Regarding your channel, Unmesh, let's take a look of your numbers that you do with your channel. Over 5 million subscribed. 1,000 of video? More 1,000?
More than 1,000 videos.
More
So it's been
1,000
a while.
video.
So nothing went viral. I didn't use any spicy magic or I didn't create a viral hit. None of that. It was very gradual and I did one after the other. Actually, in my earlier days, I used to be more consistent than I am now because right now I have many more responsibilities to take care of. But in my earlier days, all I did was make videos on YouTube. That's pretty much it. These
Yeah,
days, I'm
is
doing a lot of other things, emails, a lot of responsibilities come in your way as you move a little bit more gradually towards the progression of your career. But yeah, all I did earlier was just create videos. That's all, day in, day out.
And now we have a question live. Now I
Yeah.
check. Hi, Unmesh. Nice to meet you. How are you? How much time did you spend to do a Photoshop to you spend on Photoshop to get to level you are now?
Okay.
How many times do you spend to involve your skills of Photoshop teacher and Photoshop? I really don't know. Photoshop nerd time? I really don't
I'll
know
give you a
how
breakdown.
to define
I'll,
that.
I'll give you a breakdown. I have been using Photoshop since I was 8 years old. You can look at how old I am right now. I'm not going to reveal my age, but it's been a while, right? So it's like learning a musical instrument. There is no end to it. You keep learning, you keep playing, you never stop learning. And you're not doing it just because, I have to learn it, I have to cram it. No, you're doing it because you love it. You're doing it because it's making you curious. You're doing it because every button, every feature, every new feature coming into Photoshop is making you curious. You're loving what you're creating. You're loving the end result that you're doing. So the more you do, it automatically gets better. And you don't have to do it for the sake of doing it. You have to do it because you enjoy it. You have to do it because there is something about it that you love. So similarly, it was for me. I started Photoshop because I started playing it like a video game. So it was very fun for me to take photos, change stuff inside of those photos, do funny edits like change clothes, turn the face green, turn my relatives into green Shrek cartoons. So I used to do all that, and that's how it started. So it's all about having fun. Right now, this is my career, so I do it on a daily basis, except for the days when I'm on break. But, you know, it's just been a game. It's just something that I do because I love. There isn't a fixed set of time that I have to give to get to where I am. And I would say that even at this point, after teaching Photoshop or creating 1,000 videos or and more, actually, I there is a lot of Photoshop that I still don't know because it's always growing. There are lots of techniques that I still don't know because techniques are still being made. Somebody out there, some artist out there is discovering some technique all the time. So it's a never-ending process.
Yes. Praticamente Mesh ci dice che lui ha iniziato quando era molto giovane, circa 18 anni, e ha iniziato come un gioco e per lui è rimasto un gioco e sviluppa la sua curiosità in tutte le nuove feature, in tutte le nuove o possibilità, presumo anche guardando altri video e facendo di questo un gioco, quindi la sua voglia di continuare a fare i video è alimentata dalla curiosità e dalle nuove tecniche che ogni volta escono, ogni volta si possono sviluppare con Photoshop, quindi è un grow up continuo, è una crescita continua. There are another live question so interesting, and this is: how do I study in your course? I need a daily routine. I mean, how much time should be given every day? Nice question.
I would recommend that you create certain things, you make certain nice stuff in Photoshop that you get addicted, that you lose the track of time. I mean, that is an answer I would love to give you, but start with just as much time as you're comfortable with. Please don't do so much that you quit later. It's just like joining the gym. If you join the gym and on the very first day you went against your will and you exercised 2 hours instead of just 30 minutes, which you were supposed to, it would start to pain and ache so much that you probably would quit the other day. So don't just do just as much as you're enjoying. As soon as the enjoying stops, you can take a break, you can take a pause, and then as you begin to enjoy more, the time is automatically going to increase. So there
Oh,
isn't a fixed answer to that. I would say
yeah.
do just as much as you're comfortable with, and then keep growing from there.
That's a very romantic answer. Ora ve la traduco. Praticamente, Mesh ci dice questo. se vuoi è come andare in palestra. Quando tu inizi andare in palestra o inizi uno sport qualsiasi, ti dai degli obiettivi, no? Il primo giorno fai una cosa, poi ne fai un'altra, eccetera, eccetera. Se però forzi la mano, se però stai più di quello che il tuo corpo riesce in qualche modo a sopportare, allora quello è il momento in cui devi prenderti un break, devi magari uscire con gli amici, il giorno dopo non vai più in palestra finché i muscoli non si rilassano. A quel punto puoi ricominciare. E secondo lui, e anche secondo me a dire la verità, Photoshop funziona nello stesso modo. Impara piano piano e fai tesoro, cioè prenditi il tempo per assimilare bene quei concetti, automaticamente andrai avanti. Another live question.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, just like that.
Sorry.
I
I
think
have my
that
list, but we don't need it.
by the end of this conversation, I'd be probably fluent in Italian. Anyway,
Yes, yes.
I wanted to add, like,
Okay, we can do another formula. Learn Italian with José Costantini Studio.
absolutely, we should do that.
But I can try to learn Hindi. Okay, that's cool
Yeah,
for you. Okay, that's
very
cool for you.
possible.
Uh,
So
um,
I just wanted to add that if you're comfortable with starting with 15 minutes, do 15 minutes, do 30 minutes, and just do that as long as you're comfortable. That's a good sweet spot to begin.
yeah. Another good question from Italian, and that's interesting, and is true in my opinion. Do you think ice direction on photo editing and manipulation is a good development for photography or not?
That is a very tricky question. And the honest
Yeah.
answer is, and the really, really honest answer is, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Parts of it scare me, parts of it is something that I'm excited about. I'll give you examples of both. The things that scare me is the replacement of the entire process of creating art in the first place. Now, first of all, what is art? My parents taught me, my parents are artists, they paint on canvas.
Yeah.
So they taught me art is nothing but expression, expression of your feelings. Art is a way to express yourself. Now, if AI takes over the entire process of the art, the entire thing, it just takes away the purpose of art, which is expressing. So, what is even the point of that? So, that part of AI kind of scares me, and that part of AI is something that I'm not very comfortable with. There is another part of AI that helps you with your process, that takes away all the manual work, that allows you to create better results easily. For example, recently there was a feature introduced called Remove Distractions in Photoshop, where with one click it will select all the distracting tourists in your travel photo or all the distracting wires and cables in your photo. And with one button, it will remove all that. Very just incredible feature. Absolutely for it. Another feature that came along recently was reflection removal. Big problem, huge problem. We take such wonderful photos through the airplane window, through the hotel window, or even on at museums, or no matter where you are, and those reflections just completely ruin the photo. So the reflection removal, which is coming gradually, it's not fully ready, but you can still use it. It's an incredible feature. It's an incredible invention, in my opinion. So that part of AI is something that I support. So I don't know the entire thing because there's a lot that is involved. AI is not just one thing that you can say yes or no to. It's going to be there in the future. There are parts of it that I'm not so happy about. There are parts of it that has made my life easier and made our life as photo editors easier as well.
Okay, that's a nice, very nice answer. Praticamente ci dice questo, che c'è una parte che lo spaventa molto, una parte che lo incuriosisce e un'altra parte che in realtà lo aiuta. In questo che cosa succede? La parte che lo spaventa di più è il fatto di non avere più il controllo sulla creatività, e la creatività di base è l'espressione di una propria sensazione. L'arte come presenza nella nostra vita è una risposta emotiva, questo sicuramente è una cosa che penso anch'io e l'ho detto in più live tra le altre cose, quindi non puoi sostituire la tua risposta emotiva. Quando una persona fa un quadro non lo fa perché c'ha voglia di spendere 80 ore, ma perché vuole godersi la pennellata, miscela i colori, eccetera, eccetera, eccetera. Dall'altra parte però esiste una parte che anch'io appoggio, che è quella del guardare l'intelligenza artificiale come non un tool, ma come un assistente virtuale che ti aiuta a magari togliere quelle distrazioni che tu in real life avresti detto, guarda mi togli quella bottiglia, guarda mi togli quella cosa dalla scrivania, e lui prende e lo fa. Quindi in questo l'intelligenza artificiale ci semplifica il lavoro a tutti noi. Ovviamente l'abuso è sempre l'abuso, quindi esiste una cosa, ragazzi, che si chiama anche fair play. And next question for my friend. That's for creative question. What was your biggest what was your biggest challenge in a photo editing project, if you have one?
I wouldn't say I've had the biggest challenge that I can remember. To be honest, I didn't. And usually, whenever you have a challenge, you give it a little bit of time, do a little bit of research, do a little bit of Googling. It always helps you out. I'm so sorry. Excuse me for a second. I'm having a sneeze.
No, 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 don't worry.
Sorry about that.
No, 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 no worry.
I didn't have any biggest challenge in photo editing, but yes, as far as an artist, as far as creating videos go, yes, I've had several challenges. Sometimes I have trouble coming up with ideas because after creating 1,000 videos, you're like, okay, what to create now? What to teach now? That has been a big problem for me.
And this is the answer about another question that I made. How is important, for example, keep in mind what your content you have published and what type of content you can redo to have new videos, new. Photoshop is only Photoshop. There are curve is always curve, and the basic tools are always the basic tools. And this is so difficult to explain how many possibility the simply curve or adjustment layer or hue saturation, etc., you can do with them. And for me, it's a big challenge, for example.
Right. There's just so many things you can do with Photoshop. And there comes a time when I feel like, hey, I've explained most of those things. What now? So then, what helps me personally is just asking the audience. Usually, the audience knows what they want. So just simply a post like, what would you like to learn next? What is it that, what's something that's bothering you with Photoshop? What's something that's bothering you with photo editing? A lot of ideas come from there. And it's not just ideas. We create videos to give the audience value, to teach them something that's important to them. So the easiest way to do that is to ask the audience. So that's what I use from time to time.
Oh, that's a cool answer. Praticamente ho chiesto a lui che cosa? Quanto è difficile riproporre dei contenuti che magari hai già fatto. Perché comunque sia Photoshop come strumento, come programma è limitato, cioè gli strumenti base sono sempre gli strumenti base, non cambiano. Quindi come è possibile, e questo credo che sia anche un po' il segreto poi del rimanere su un certo audience. E lui spiega questo, ha detto, io do possibilità di faccio una valutazione sull'audience che ho, nel senso se un video è andato particolarmente bene, magari lo sfrutto e lo ripropongo con un'altra tecnica, ma utilizzo sempre gli stessi tool, in modo da avere più possibilità e le persone che guardano i miei video possono scegliere se magari quel particolare argomento non è ancora ben chiaro, hanno l'argomento prima o comunque sia lo possono intersecare tra i due argomenti. Ed è una grande risposta, in realtà è molto lungimirante, considerando che YouTube è una piattaforma che ti permette tanto, ma è limitata, nel senso che se poi non hai nuovi contenuti non riesci poi a stare sul pezzo. Non che lui ce ne abbia bisogno con 5 milioni di iscritti. Let's keep going.
Oh, yeah.
So, oh, that's a cool. Are there common mistakes you'd notice for beginners making Photoshop?
The biggest mistake beginners make
Yeah.
is not converting their layers into a smart object and doing edits destructively, not using adjustment layers. So whenever you're working with Photoshop, if you take the brush tool and if you start brushing with something on the same layer, it's just done forever. You cannot erase that. You have to undo everything to get to it. So, the biggest mistake beginners do is not converting their layers into a smart object so that whatever filter they can apply, they will would be able to always go back later. That's number one. The other thing is not working in multiple layers. If you're brushing and painting, try to work on as many layers as possible. The other thing is start with a proper resolution. If you're starting with a low enough resolution and then move forward, it's just hard to change everything later. So start with a higher resolution and then go from there. So those are a few mistakes off the top of my head that I can think of that beginners do. Also, if you're doing long form color grading, if you're adding a lot of layers, I recommend at least working in 16-bit, because if you're working with 8-bit with a lot of adjustment layers, you'll see banding. So don't do that. So those are a few things that are coming off the top of my head. Actually, I think I have made a video of 10 things that beginners or even pro users get wrong. So I recommend watching that.
Ok, ok, ok. Praticamente la domanda era questa: quali sono gli errori più comuni? Anche se in realtà l'ho letta male perché è stata scritta male, ho fatto copy-pasta. Quali sono gli errori più comuni che vedi quando la gente inizia a utilizzare Photoshop? Giustamente lui dice non convertire i livelli in smart object quando devi utilizzare dei livelli, direttamente sul livello vuoi utilizzare magari dei filtri o delle cose, quindi sei costretto a lavorare in maniera distruttiva perché poi devi fare passi indietro e ritornare avanti. La seconda cosa è giustamente non lavorare per livelli e non abituarsi a lavorare con il multilivello tutti quelli che ha bisogno. In seconda cosa, non lavorare con risoluzioni troppo basse e, se possibile, andando avanti, iniziare a lavorare in 16 bit per evitare dei bending magari sulle curve quando si fanno vignettature pesanti o cose così. E soprattutto lui ha fatto un video su sta cosa, quindi andatelo a guardare. Oh, I have a question for you. This is a very smash down question.
Okay.
PNG 24 o JPG?
Hmm. Hard to say. Very depends
Very
on
hard.
what you're working with. Depends on what you're working with. Of course, PNG is going to be lossless. JPEG is going to be lossy. So yeah, there are advantages and disadvantages to both. If you're dealing with an actual photograph of a landscape or a person, then JPEG will give you much smaller size as compared to a PNG, which allows you to upload it nicely on the web, on your website, so you have that flexibility. Whereas if you look at PNG, it will always be in all the circumstances higher quality. But then if you upload it to web, it's going to be converted anyway. So there are use cases for both of
Yeah,
them.
yes. Praticamente io ho fatto una domanda un po' stupidina, nel senso che anch'io la penso così: meglio PNG 24 o JPG? Bene, dipende un po' da quello che devi esportare. Il PNG 24 tu togli tutti i bending perché, non essendo un formato lossless, quindi non perde qualità, se andate a vignettare pesante o se avete dei spot di luce, non vedrete i bending classici della conversione in JPG, specialmente in sRGB. Dall'altra parte però la dimensione del file è importante, quindi comunque quando la mettete sul web, a meno che non avete lo spazio giusto, comunque si andrà a perdere la qualità, quindi dipende un pochettino da voi. Another question live is my brother's Unmesh. How many hours do you spend working each day?
Oh, thank you so much for the question, Arman. And it's not fixed. It's never fixed. But I would say this: for the days, except for the days I'm not taking breaks. Yes, I do take breaks to recharge. It's very important that you do that. Apart from those 1 or 2 days in a week, I usually am waking up, working on Photoshop, maybe exercising for a bit, eating and sleeping. That's all I do. But uh, I do take some time to, let's say, go out for a drive or go outside or listen to music. Do take the time for that. Or even I'm sitting, you're always thinking about like what you are going to do next. What projects do you want to involve yourself in, and what interests you? And usually in the world of Photoshop or in the world of creating videos or in the world of teaching people or doing workshops. So for me, it's all about, always I'm thinking of creative things. That's my entire day. So there is no fixed time. This is, unfortunately, this is the kind, and fortunately as well, this is the kind of a job where you're not working at a fixed time, but the trade-off is you may end up working all the time.
Oh, that's nice. Quindi praticamente ci dice questo, che lui, a discapito di quello che si possa pensare, se prende i break, comunque sia pensa bene a quello che deve fare e cerca comunque sia di dare un ritmo alla creazione dei contenuti e alla vita privata, comunque sia agli hobby, comunque a quello che sono i suoi progetti futuri. Regarding next project, next goal that you want to obtain, what do you see yourself from 5 years or 10 years? I know this about you. You have a lot of passion for teaching. You
Right.
love teaching. Inside of you, you have fire of teacher. And you are last Jedi of teaching Photoshop, like Yoda. Okay, but for Photoshop. And I, how do you see yourself in the future?
To be honest with you,
Yeah.
if you had asked me 10 years ago, I would be teaching Photoshop on YouTube, I would have not imagined it, in my wildest dreams, that I would be doing this today. 10 years ago, when I was in college, actually, my goal probably, I think, was even before that, I wanted to be an animator. I wanted to get into animation. That was my goal. But things changed and I planned to do different things. One thing led to another, and I got into this. So I don't know how the next 10 years is going to be. It's impossible to imagine because where I am today, I wouldn't have imagined that 10 years ago. Where I'm going to be 10 years later, it's just impossible to imagine that. However, one thing is for sure is that I love teaching. So whatever I would be doing, maybe 10 years later, I would be doing some form of teaching. Maybe it is still Photoshop, maybe not. Maybe it is the piano, maybe it is physics, whatever that is. I probably will still be a teacher 10 years from now.
And do you never try to think to become a teacher for teacher?
Oh,
Uh,
interesting.
huh?
I'm
How
not sure.
to teach Photoshop other teacher? So how the teacher
If Adobe
can.
offers me that opportunity to teach their teachers, I would definitely take up that.
Yeah, I hope yes. I hope yes. You absolutely do it. And we have a question regarding Lightroom, but
Yeah,
um,
let's just bring it up. I'm not sure if I know about that, but
I
okay, let
don't use Lightroom, but simply the question is this. Now I get here. How to create a perfect mask in Lightroom? Because in Lightroom, select subject or the sky doesn't not work well.
well, it
And I
does
really
work.
don't know.
Okay, it does work. Okay, it's so you have already used Camera, right? Camera and Lightroom usually share the same interface. So the question mostly is about the new masking techniques, the new automatic masking techniques where you can select the skin, where you can select the sky, where you can select the background automatically. It's about that. Now, I do understand that Lightroom and even Camera, they may not be absolutely perfect. And the reason is usually you're working with sliders, you're not making very minute adjustments there. So it's mostly not needed, but the more accurate it gets in the future, the better. But yeah, you can always adjust those with a brush. So whenever it doesn't get it right, you can always take the brush. By the way, Oshia, just as you do in
Yup.
Camera, you just take the brush and you can erase or add certain areas to it. That's how I would correct that.
Yeah. Uh, mm, I can say this regarding Lightroom. Lightroom, as for example, Capture One, want to become standalone program. And this is important because, in my opinion, Lightroom and also Capture One want to take away to Photoshop. You start in Lightroom and finish your edit in Lightroom, and the same for Capture One. And the involving of this software is interesting because there are a great competitor of Photoshop, but Photoshop is for photographer. Don't forget this. Lightroom is for all, in my opinion. Content creator, people that don't want invade with a complex technique. I don't know. What do you think, Umesh?
Well, Lightroom is, I believe, it's for everybody, even professional photographers. Now, what I have seen that, let's say you're a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer, and you have like 20 photos or 300 photos. Lightroom is a great organizer. Lightroom is a great way to sync all of your edits. Lightroom is a great way to correct the exposure of everything at the same time. 90% of the things you can do in Lightroom, what I believe, for the most part, if you have a lot of photos. And then if you need to do some finer adjustments, you bring those photos into Photoshop. So Lightroom is not by itself something that will do the entire thing for you. It cannot do high-end retouching. It cannot change the background very intricately for you. It cannot do everything. For those things, you have to get into Photoshop. And that's why Adobe includes the photography plan, which has both Lightroom and Photoshop. So it's a workflow. You get your photo in Lightroom, you do the finer details in Photoshop, you save it, it goes back into your Lightroom catalog, so you can export it from there, do whatever you want from there.
Ok, praticamente il discorso è questo qua, che si parlava praticamente del fatto che sia Lightroom che Capture One, per esempio, sono due programmi che vogliono diventare un pochettino standalone. Ho chiesto a Unmesh cosa ne pensasse di questo e lui giustamente ha detto Lightroom ti permette, come Capture One, di fare delle cose che sono estremamente interessanti su un gran numero di foto, aggiustare l'esposizione, aggiustare i contrasti, applicare un preset. Poi però quando si va a fare interventi abbastanza intricati, abbastanza importanti, allora devi per forza passare per Photoshop, perché comunque Photoshop è pensato innanzitutto per il ritocco della fotografia, mentre Lightroom è pensato per il ritocco e soprattutto innanzitutto nasce come sviluppatore, come anche Capture One. E quindi questo è un po' il motivo per cui Adobe ha scelto di integrare questi due programmi insieme nel pacchetto fotografi. Ok? There are a question for a bot. Me and two, but I answered to before for the first. How do you cultural preferences from Asian to European influence both the technical approaches and aesthetic choice in photo editing? That's a nice and intricate question to answer.
So I would say it's a global thing these days. A lot of photographers from India, a lot of editors from India are working with people who are in Europe. A lot of people there are working with a lot of Indians who are there, like Indian weddings. So there, it's all blending. It's hard to say. I would say that if you look at more Indian traditional photography, you would see more color, and if you look at more, I would say, European stuff, you would see, again, more elegance. But then again, it's just hard to say because there isn't, I haven't written, it's just, I cannot say it in one video. It's so different, depends upon the people, depends upon the style you're going for. I have seen all kinds of stuff, like if I look at Oz's work, a lot of his work is colorful,
Oh,
right?
thanks.
And if I look at a lot of photographers from even India, a lot of their colors, they have very minimal colors. So it's just, I cannot stereotype it. It's just impossible.
I'm totally in your way, and I think the same. My opinion, the most important. I study a lot arts, art story of arts. I graduated from this in college, and I think this the inspiration of photography, like for painting, depend of your feel of your mental state, your feeling that you have in this particular period. we are different every day. We have a different emotion every day. Photography is the same thing. If you
Absolutely.
are sad, you want to see sad photography. If you're happy, you want to see pop-up art. Oh, I don't know how. India, for example, is my dream goal for photography because it's so colored, the people are so beautiful, so smiling, and I hope to travel in India one day and simply take my camera and take a picture without any particular compromise, like flashes or what kind of camera. I really don't. Doesn't matter this. The most important of photography is photography,
It is. And just
and
as you said, every day we are different. Um, I used to think for a long time, and this is related to that. It's unrelated, related, and related at the same time. I used to think for a long time that there is something wrong with my audio editing. The way I edit my audio in my videos, there is something wrong because I'm sounding a bit different in this video. In that video is sounding okay. In this video is sounding different. And then I realized there is nothing wrong with my mic or editing. It is just that we even sound different every single day. And that is something I discovered after creating videos year after year and editing all of those videos year after year. We absolutely, I would recommend that you record your voice at some point, do it again tomorrow at the same time or even different times of the day. You actually sound different. Your texture
yes,
changes.
it's true. It's true. And we have another question from the same person that did before. My brother Unmesh. Okay, let's go. Sometimes I get excited when learning Photoshop. How do I control myself? Please give
Why
me
do
some tips.
why do you want to control? Well, you don't have to control
Yeah,
your excitement.
yes.
Let it grow, let it even grow even more, and do whatever you want. I mean, this excitement will allow you to spend hours and hours without keeping track of time. So I would say go for it. Why control it? That's the kind of excitement you don't want to control.
Yes, it's true. And regarding, for example, your hobby, no, we talk about you for for a moment. You love play piano. It's true.
Yeah, yeah, right.
You and what kind of music do you like? For example, classic
So
music,
I'm not
metal,
professionally. uh,
Indian metal. I have
you
I
know
have a
you play metal, so I do get that. But I'm not professionally trained in the piano, so something I picked up. It's a very nice story. Back then, remember we had phones which were not touch screen. I'm sure you would remember those. We
yeah.
had those Motorola phones where we had those numbers 1 to 9. So I realized that if you press 1, it is like C in the keyboard. If you press 2, it is like D in the keyboard. Back then, I had no concept of that. I figured, hey, if I play 1155665, I can just make it into Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with just playing numbers right there. My parents noticed that, and I really wanted to get a keyboard to try the same thing, and that's how it started. They bought me a toy keyboard, and
And
from then on, yeah, I started playing whatever music that I was listening to. So I'm not professionally trained. I learned a bit of fingering from here and there, looking at different books. But after that, I just tried to play whatever music I heard, and that's how it has been for all of these years.
oh, that's a very funny. It's a very nice story. And what your kind of music do you like to play? For
All
example,
kinds.
classic music.
There is no limit to it. I would play pop music sometimes. I would play the classics. I would play some old rock music, some a lot of Indian music, old Bollywood music. So there is no limit to. I don't have a specific style that I like. I love to try everything.
Oh, that's super nice. Nice. I'm ex-musician. I tell you
Yeah,
when
right.
you start, but I can't play anymore because I have a problem with hand, and I feel so bad when I play guitar, and that's why I don't play anymore. But it's okay.
There
We
are
have
other
another.
I'm sure there are ways that you can play. There are many of these electrical instruments that are coming into where all you have to do is just touch
No, no,
those areas.
I can touch for a little bit, but after I move my hands faster for 5 minutes to 10 minutes, I really don't know what. I feel my hands so bad, so fluffy, and my articulation are not good. And this is a fun story because all camera bring with the other hand,
Okay.
and I can bring and take my camera, but in the reverse mode, I probably drop down my camera after a
Oh,
long time. I
oh, I see.
I take it. So we have another question for a bot. That's another question really interesting to answer.
I'm sure
Question
you.
for us. When we do a car shot and there's a lot of reflection, is possible to cover it in a shot or not? Unmesh how to remove it properly.
Yeah, you answered
Okay,
photography side. Go ahead.
yeah, that's interesting question to answer. So first of all, answer you. You are the guest and you have priority.
Well, if you're talking about removing reflections in post, that is something I can answer. And the way I would do it is that I would really recommend that you try the new remove tool. If it works, fantastic. They're just That's one of the newest developments in Photoshop, and it just works incredibly. And if it doesn't work, there is one thing that is guaranteed to work. Whenever you use the remove tool, go to the options at the top. For that, you need to update your Photoshop to the latest version. Remove tool now has the option that it can work with the power of generative AI. So go there and you can turn on generative AI with the remove tool. That's going to take the help of AI to fill up those areas. But do keep in mind that it will use up your credits a little bit, but the results are pretty amazing. Something that's just hard to imagine probably just a year ago. So I would do that.
Yeah, and regarding this answer that Umesh explained, he did a nice video with Tattoo Man with the same exactly technique. I think it's a shorts. When you
Okay, yeah,
use okay, do you remember? You
right.
make it. I hope you remember it. And it's the same technique. You can simply use a remove tool and go for generative AI on. It's a little bit slowly. Take
Right. It,
a little bit of time.
right, it does. But if you have to, I usually keep generative AI off, right, and use the
Me
remove tool
too.
pretty fast. And, it uses the surrounding areas. But if you come into a situation where the reflection is just too big and you're just not able to remove it, only and only then I turn it on. But for all the other times, I keep it off because it's super fast and it doesn't eat up my credits and it uses the surrounding images. So yeah,
That's
surrounding.
true. Regarding the photography part about this question, I recommend to use polarized filter to minimize the reflection in the cars. And if you use a natural light, the better moment to make some interesting shooting regarding cars is a cloudy day with any hard light in the car, or if you need, you must use a big screen, a big diffuser material above the car, and try to make some interesting photo. But polarized is must have for this type of shooting. It's the same for the glasses, the window, the all type of television, for example, etc., etc., etc. Another two question. Wow, what's approach to maintain color authenticity while pushing creative boundaries in photo editing?
What do you mean by authenticity? I would, yeah.
I really don't know.
I don't know. I wouldn't have any boundaries. I would just do whatever I want, whatever looks good to you. Here's what I learned before. I think I learned it from Scott Kelby. I'm not sure if you're aware of Scott Kelby. And I was listening to one of his classes. Again, this was a very long time ago. And he told me something that stuck with me. And the concept goes behind this: don't worry too much about the technicalities. A lot of people worry about they're decreasing the highlights. They don't want to blow out the highlights. They want to have details in the shadows. All I'm saying is you're creating art. This is not photojournalism. If it looks good, even with blowing out the highlights, blow out the highlights. If it looks good with having no details in the shadows, go with that. Make it a style. This is art. This is not photojournalism. Do what looks good to you and express your style. That's my approach to this.
And it's a very good approach. Praticamente ci dice questo, che quando gli è stata fatta questa domanda in passato, anche quando insegnava, la gente si preoccupava molto del fissare le alte luci, le ombre, del recuperare i dettagli. E lui giustamente ha detto, però non stiamo facendo fotogiornalismo, stiamo facendo una cosa che è arte, quindi sii creativo. Se ti piace, se funziona in quella foto, quella luce bruciata, fallo. Se le ombre devono essere completamente nere in quella foto perché funziona, farlo. E per i colori vale la stessa cosa. Premetto una cosa, mantenere l'autenticità del colore dipende molto da come fate le foto, non tanto da come le editate, quindi questo forse è una domanda a cui potrei rispondere in un altro momento. We have another question regarding color grading and I have the same question. So,
Yeah.
keep going. Color grading is very important for any raw imaging. Some teams for choice write grading through IE. Any tips or tool you know?
Through AI? Okay.
Uh, Through AI, I really don't know.
I don't use AI for color grading because I
Me ne-
haven't seen, again, I don't know how you would use AI for color grading. There are plugins that you can use that randomly generate color grading, like Infinite Color. But then again, these days, what I use more, Infinite Color is a good one, by the way. These days, what I use more is just going with how I feel. If you want a warmer tone, I would actually start with the color grading section or the color mixer or the point color to get to where I'm going and then go from there. If you are confused about which direction to take your color grading to, you can just, this is my first latest tip, and this is what I would recommend, and it may change later. These days, the amount of presets we have with Camera Raw is just insane. Just go to the preset section and just hover over all of those, and it's going to give you a preview of each and every one of those presets. And you can pick what you like, and then you can modify the preset to your liking. That's a good tip if you're confused about which direction to take your color grading to. But if you already have something in mind, you can directly start with the color grading module inside of Camera Raw. Or if you would prefer to work inside of Photoshop, you already know curves, just work through those colors. If you want to make it warmer, you need to increase the reds a little bit. You need to decrease the blues a little bit. So if you are into that, you do that, you do you. But the easiest way to get an idea of where you want to take your color grading is you can just go through the presets inside of Camera Raw. Also, I have another video where I talked about how you can generate unlimited color grading. And that is if you were to create a gradient map in Photoshop, and then change its blend mode to soft light, it kind of applies a color grading, right? You can decrease the opacity, it does that. The crazy thing about that is that if you open the properties of that gradient map and you change the color grading type to rough or noise, there is a setting like that. I would recommend watching that video. A button appears called random. You press that button and it will generate random gradients for you. Every time you press that button, it will generate a brand new color grading that you had not expected before. So that also allows you to explore different kinds of color grading.
Ok, come sempre, un mesh è una risposta per tutti in maniera pratica e semplice come lo contraddistingue, questa è una cosa fighissima. Praticamente illustra semplicemente due strade per il color grading base, quindi su Photoshop o utilizzare il color grading di Camera Raw con tutti i vari preset di cui parlavamo prima, oppure utilizzando mappa sfumatura dove puoi praticamente generare una quantità infinita di palette di colore per poterle ottimizzare nelle tue foto. Questo ovviamente ha un pro e un contro, il fatto che lo fa lui randomicamente, quindi non c'è controllo su quello che succederà, va più a mi piace o non mi piace. Dall'altra parte però è un buon modo per iniziare ad entrarsi nel mondo del color grading, diciamo un pochettino più fai da te. In realtà Photoshop ci mette a disposizione strumenti molto professionali e in questo vi invito a vedere qualche video mio. Next question for my friend. Ok. Oh, there are a tool in Photoshop that you think is unrated but essential?
That is underrated.
I don't hear you. I don't know why.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
What's happening? Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Yes.
Guys, I don't know if is my earphone. Let me know in chat if someone here or
Let me
not.
know if you're hearing
Mesh.
me or hearing Oz. How's it going?
This is doing.
Check.
I don't know
Right.
if you're a little
Are
bit.
you? Yes. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Okay, we can hear both, but I can hear you. I don't know why. Let me check my earphone. Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. Let me try to.
All right. So can you hear me now?
Okay. Try to speak, Umesh.
Hello.
Why I don't
You can.
hear you? Why?
Okay. So I was just checking the settings.
Okay, try to speak now.
Hopefully this is working. Check.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm seeing it here.
Okay, what's doing
Can you hear me?
now?
Can you hear me now? Interesting. I think we are here. I cannot see your comments, by the way. So that is another thing. All right. Hopefully, let me see if I'm able to hear myself. Okay. Great. All right, so I have opened the comments so I can see your comments. Seems like I'm the only one live right here. So I'm gonna open up, I'm gonna message Oz and see how it is. This is weird. Yeah, yeah. I hear. Let me text you. I cannot. It seems like the audience can hear me.
Okay, now you can hear me.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Okay, oh, finally.
Finally.
Configuration about. Okay, sorry for this little problem.
No
I hope we don't. Okay. The last question that I make is this. Is there a tool in Photoshop that you think underrated but is essential?
Underrated?
Yeah.
Did you mean underrated? It's hard to say from off the top of my head. I would say keep autosave turned on. That is the first thing I would do. A lot of people ignore that. Am I audible?
Okay.
Am I
Wait. You are.
am I audible?
No, I hear you well. Wait.
Okay, let me check.
Let me check too. Allora, voice chat is okay. Allora. Okay, I think it's all right, my friends. I hear you well.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. Italian
All right.
connection sucks. Okay. Keep going.
Perfect. All right.
Perfect.
I just wanted to say that off the top of my head, it's hard to think of a feature, but I would say that one feature that a lot of beginners, if you're starting out with Photoshop, should determine setting is the autosave feature. Trust me, you're going to thank yourself for setting this right, because Photoshop can crash anytime, your computer can crash anytime, anything can happen. So go to your preferences, make sure autosave is turned on. I usually set it to the lowest amount of time that it allows me to set it to, which is 5 minutes. So every 5 minutes, it's going to be auto saving your last work. So the next time your computer crashes, I hope it doesn't, you always can get back to those versions. Another thing that comes to mind right now is BlendIf. BlendIf is life changing. A lot of people don't use it, right? It is
I'm
just
addicted
so
to
much
this.
life changing. You can mask with it. You can apply anything on any surface with it. You can do color grading with it. It has just so many use cases. It's just unimaginable. So BlendIf, I highly recommend you looking into that.
Ok, praticamente a me ci dice questo, che la prima cosa da valutare è utilizzare l'autosave almeno a 5 minuti, solitamente si mette a 5 minuti perché in realtà di default è a 10, in modo da evitare crash improvvisi o recuperare il lavoro. La seconda cosa è blend-if, in italiano è fondisé. Ho fatto un'innumerevole quantità di video anch'io su fondisé, quindi li potete andare a trovare e vi cambia la vita perché vi permette di fare blending di tutto quello che volete in maniera super naturale. Io per esempio lo uso sempre, sono proprio un addicted su questo. We have two questions that I forget to read. Oh, that's interesting. Question for Unmesh. What is the beauty point in women and men where we do high-end retouching, like jawline, making nose perfect, or eyes, or I think other stuff?
It's a very aesthetic question. You
Yeah.
want to make the men look tough, and you want to make the women look beautiful. That's all there is to it. Don't over retouch a man's face to make him less tough and soft. That's not the character you're probably going for a man. You want to make him tough. You want to accentuate those features. While for a woman, it might be entirely different. And again, it absolutely depends on the kind of subject you're working with, the kind of mood you're going for. So always determine the vision for your project and then retouch accordingly. Keep in mind, retouching is an art. It's not a process that you have to do. It's an art. And you do just as much as required without changing how natural it is, without changing much with just keeping it as natural as possible.
Praticamente, giustamente nel retouch beauty, questo lo posso sottolineare in quanto è il mio lavoro. Quello che fai comunque non è sempre lo stesso processo e comunque si tratta di arte in qualche modo, quindi devi rendere la donna più bella e l'uomo più accattivante. Questo è sicuramente più la base. Poi il modo in cui ci arrivi, professionalmente parlando, deve avere dei prerequisiti, nel senso, si potrebbe aprire una parentesi enorme su quello che è il discorso dell'high-end retouch. In realtà, poi questo lo dirò anche in inglese a Unmesh, esistono due grandi filoni, il filone natural look e il filone fake skin. Diciamo che nel mondo di alto livello si preferisce il natural look. I translate for you now on Mesh. I simply said this. There are two philosophy of high-end
Right.
retouch. Natural skin look and fake skin look.
Mm.
In USA, they love a little bit more fakey skin, fakey pores. But in Europe, especially in high levels of beauty, and it's my job, we prefer natural skin look. Is more difficult because you masterize dodge and burn technique,
Right.
heating
Right.
technique, volume technique, skin replacement technique, I don't know, maybe. And it's so difficult, and I spend a lot of hours to make a perfect skin look without losing the look like.
Right. I
Okay.
get that. You know, a good skin retouch, a good high-end dodge and burn can take hours. It's really an art, and it's not something that you get in the first go. It just takes a lot of practice.
Yes, dodge and burn is the most difficult technique, in my opinion, in Photoshop to, I don't know, to become a very master, to control all types of your workflow. Because if you, for example, I don't know you, but I prefer work with curves
Yeah.
for dodge and burn.
So there are many techniques to do dodging and burning.
Yeah.
I have taught the curves technique that you use. You create a curves and then you use masks inside of the curves to do that. You can also just simply create a gray layer. A lot of people use that technique, painting with white and black, changing the blend mode of the gray layer to soft light. You can also create just a blank layer and paint with black or white or even dark or light skin tones. There's just so many ways to
Yes,
do
it's
one
true.
thing in Photoshop. Whatever is convenient to you, whatever works for your photo, go with it. There's no one stopping you to do that.
Yes. The last question for Mesh, because we have spent 1 hour together, and this is question that I overlay now. When you start YouTube with Photoshop, how did you earn? Did you freelance, and what your advice for new learners?
Okay. When I was starting out, I was still in college. I was in the second year of my college. So I was not earning full time because I had studies to focus to as well. So I was doing tutorials. I was also teaching a little bit to the people I knew here and there. There are friends who I was guiding here and there. And apart from that, I did a bit of freelancing here and there. I did edit for people a little bit, but most of my time was spent either college assignments, which did involve photography, which did involve videography, and then teaching people Photoshop. And then by the end of the college, I was completely into the education field. That's all I was doing. If you're asking for tips, I would say always keep creating. That's something that I always tell people to do, because not I would recommend not getting stuck with getting things perfect, not getting stuck with perfection, because then you will never be able to complete it. Just do that thing, move on. And after you have done 100 pieces of work, I can guarantee that you would look at the first or the second photo that you took or the image that you created, and you would have a good laugh at it. So just keep creating, get better, and opportunities automatically start coming from there. You can create your profiles, you can start to build your brand, reach out through that way. There are so many avenues to do that. But the most important thing is create a unique style of yours creates such good work that people automatically get attracted to it.
Ok, I translate now. Praticamente lui quando ha iniziato a fare i video per YouTube era ancora era al secondo anno di college e studiava comunicazione, fotografia e videografia. Ora non so il corso come sia strutturato, però quello studiava. Quindi ha iniziato a lavorare così e soprattutto ha iniziato ad appassionarsi all'insegnamento di Photoshop verso le altre persone, verso i compagni di classe, verso... E da lì poi è nato il suo business, che è quello che poi lui fa oggi, cioè insegna alle persone ed è quello. E come consiglio dice questo: rimanete creativi, sviluppate una vostra comunicatività, un vostro modo di comunicare le cose e create la vostra identità. Poi le occasioni verranno da sole e questa live di oggi per esempio ne è una prova. Now I translate for Unmesh. I simply said this. Regarding keep creative, create a unique style that you said before, and the purpose come alone. This is a nice example. We meet because we work for the same company, but we are so distant. We start a good, friendly, and I hope a new other with other collaboration, other stuff. I really hope you enjoy this live and we can maintain our contact. And that's all. I have another question for you, just for me.
Yeah.
And do you never think to start to make video regarding photography and not
No,
retouching?
I'm not a master of that. A lot of people also ask me like, where can I see your videos on Adobe Illustrator? I say I'm not a master of it. I mean, I use Illustrator. Know Illustrator just as much as I need it. I would say the same thing with photography. That's a hobby. That is something that I do for fun, just to enjoy myself, have a good time. But I'm not a master of it like you are, Oz. So I don't teach it unless I am comfortable with feeling that, hey, I've cracked this even a little bit. Then maybe in the future I can consider that.
Yeah, it's a nice proposal, but I think you are, in my really honest opinion, the most communicative teacher of YouTube. You have, I don't know, a sort of magnetic style, and people follow you with passion, with enjoy to see your video. Is teaching, but it's not old school teaching. Okay, this is, and you do this to do that, and I don't know. It's more funny, more, and I absolutely love. I'm your big fan. I said to you before, and but guys, for now it's time to finish this live. And Unmesh, thanks for coming in this live. For me, it's a great opportunity and a great honor to talk to you. I'm so sorry for a little bit
That's fine.
camera
I even
problem.
forgot
Oh,
about it. I
okay,
think it
and
was a problem from my end. But anyway,
okay, and we can find this live on my channel. We can repost this live on our Instagram page. Follow me. Obviously, follow Unmesh because it's the master of Photoshop. And I hope you have a fun, and I hope you are comfortable to talk with me because my English is not very fluent, and
and
I hope
neither
it's
is my
okay.
French as fluent. Is nowhere fluent as your English.
Oh, thanks. Okay, thanks a lot, guys, for joining this live. See you in next video. Have a
Oh,
kiss.
thank you so much. Thank you.